Episode 26, live and running. 84 feet with Cady and Cap. I'm Brian Cady. That's Albany Academy head coach Brian Capitulo repping the Bears on the chest. Say it with the chest cap. Look at that.
The Bears, the wrong colors, but oh well.
Duh, Bears. Uh, yeah, yeah. Ready to roll here. Um, how you doing, man?
I'm good. Just
What's the hat, by the way?
that's a bear too. It's Smokey the Bear. So
Only you can prevent wildfires.
That's exactly what it says.
Very good. Very good.
Just in case.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, yeah, we got ourselves a hell of a guest for this episode. Definitely one of the first non-coaches that popped to mind right away when I was thinking about guests for this show, and we've actually gotten to make this happen during a busy time for him as he's coming out of one showcase and getting, coming out of that, doing stuff behind the scenes to, put together reviews and stuff. And then he's getting ready for another, and then he's going to have another, and then the season will start. And he's a crazy man with a crazy, crazy schedule that'll ramp up all the way through March, and then who knows? Maybe he'll have more showcases and more crazy stuff going on after that. But it is the man that is the brains and the hot fingers of tweeting and typing behind Empire State Takeover, the mayor of New York State girls basketball, the one, the only, Jeff Mlinar. Jeff, what up, man?
What's going on?
Those hands are insured. Those hands are insured.
Yeah, that's brains. I appreciate the usage of the word brains there. It's pretty loose terminology. And also, I didn't realize we were paying homage to the bear, or else I would have like an Italian beef sandwich, like the show. That would be my.
That would be your bear.
Yeah, that would be my way to add to it. But so happy to be here.
Well, first off, what's insured for more money? The hands, the phone that you tweet on, or the camera that's on your hip every day? I see you.
Did you say camera or cameras?
Oh boy!
Well, I think a camera with multiple batteries. I think.
Yeah, there's two cameras there. One of them, the newer one, I kind of broke like not long after I got it, but it's still halfway functional. So if I need it, it's there. But what's insured for? I mean, nothing's insured for more than a nickel. But since I'm still using the same phone for the last like 5 years, the battery isn't really doing it for me anymore. So it's probably not that.
I'm trying to think. What's the old? What was it like? Lords of London, or the insurance thing that people used to take out to like insure their legs or shit like that.
I don't know. All I know is when you get his tweet about he might want to look into a new phone when he sends out the I don't have any service here. That happens a lot in some of those.
Oh, that happens. Oh, especially early winter. That's going to the because earlier in the basketball season, usually when I spend more time in the rural areas, because it feels like smaller schools kind of front load their schedules a bit more, where the bigger schools backload them. So I spent a lot of time in more rural areas in late November through Christmas time. That's where it's a lot of like surface questionable. I might have one bar. Wi-Fi is not a thing here yet. But yeah, that happens kind of early winter. You know who this is an out of area mention, but you know who helped me with that starting last year was Nate Lowe. You know, the main sports personality, radio, kind of everything out in the Oneonta area.
Yep.
And all he does is Class C and D, and he's used to those, Delaware County middle of mountain, no service, whatever. And, he's like, I've got all the proxy set up and this and that. And it's like, there's always a way. So he taught me some of those ways last year. I've got to thank him for that. Checks in the mail.
All right, so just want to go back a little bit. Let's just talk about a young Jeff. I know that you you went to high school like just outside the area limits of Section 2. Basically, you went to Herkimer.
Mm-hmm.
Just talk a little bit about a little bit about you, about growing up in the Herkimer area, and what's how basketball has been a part of your life basically since you were a kid.
I mean, my father put a basketball in my hands when I was 3 years old, and it hasn't left. So, it was something like I hate to use the cliche sort of stuff about like you were born for something or it's a part of you or whatever, but it was just something that he put in my hand, and then it never had to be forced on me. It was just something that I gravitated to, whether it was playing the game or watching it or just kind of being a part of it, any way, shape, or form. Even from in high school when we didn't have games and the girls had home games, I was shot clock guy in high school. So it was just no matter what role, it was just something that I've always wanted to be around. But yeah, grew up in Herkimer, Section 3, the eastern edges of Section 3. But I always say, even though I live in the Albany area now, I'm still CNY enough to have a 315 area code. And yeah, played, graduated from there about 15 years ago. And from there it was, kind of college was bouncing around from injury to injury and school to school. But once I put the ball down, it was I knew I always wanted the game, or I always wanted the game to be a part of my life. And it was kind of figuring out what that role was. Whether, probably the natural progression is going from playing to coaching, and that's what I anticipated it being. Did that for, out of college. My first year, I was back at Herkimer helping out. It was actually helping out on the girls' side with their varsity, and I was the modified coach there for that year. That was, even just that stretch of 3 months was, I don't know if I want to say a rude awakening, but I'll use that just as far as how much high school coaches go through and how small a percentage of the job of being a high school basketball coach is actually coaching basketball. Just I won't get into all of those details, but you guys realize all that. It just everything whether it's with administration or managing egos or whatever it may be, just such a small percentage of it is actually coaching the game of basketball. And coming from Herkimer, I think, or just not just Herkimer itself, but coming from a smaller town, whether I really think about it this way or not, I think part of that is what it was part of a motivation behind kind of getting into this role, where when you're from a smaller town, there's not as many people around that have gone, like if you want to be, say, a college basketball player, or you want to just kind of just extend that path beyond high school, take it as far as you can. There's not that many people around that have done it. There's not that many people around that are, they can try, but you just naturally don't have that many people around that have been through that process. They can really guide you, and even the way I grew up, my parents tried, as far as this stuff, like my parents tried their best. They were amazing. They were great, but not a college athlete background and not really a college background. My father probably did 2 weeks of junior college before he went into painting, and my mom nursing school when they needed, once he got to a point where he needed more certifications for the sort of position that she had. But besides that, not like not just the college athlete thing, but didn't come from a background of higher education.
Sure.
And I had people around that tried to help, but just you don't really, if you haven't been through it, you don't really know at the same time. So I think that was part of the motivation coming from that. Just how many people want that sort of, have passions for the game of basketball and have dreams and goals for something more, but don't come from a sort of situation that they have people around them that could really guide them.
Sure.
So long way around saying 10 years ago, kind of one thing led to another and EST started, and here we are.
Now with the EST stuff, you obviously it's your child and you built it, but like the starting days of EST and getting those things off the ground, like did you really have any idea of what it was going to be? Obviously you have in your mind how you want to build it, but do you have any models that you're using? Like, meaning, is there anyone else that you're maybe following or watching how they may do things, or do you just kind of create a plan yourself and start?
So the real start behind this, I won't, as far as the Empire State Takeover stuff, this is coming right out of that year of coaching. I had worked with a name that might be familiar with you guys, Cornelius King,
mm-hmm.
who ran an organization called King of Kings, which was more known for its men's and women's leagues based in Utica. He had NCAA sanctioned leagues, which that allowed current NCAA Division I players to participate. And right about that time, I was in my early 20s. He was starting up what he called college prospect division for high school boys. And I kind of worked my way into some of the operations with King of Kings, just nothing big, but we had a little advisory board where I was on that and would help out with various things. And after the first year of the college prospect division, I was asked to be the commissioner for that, to run that. And I had some ideas as to how I wanted to go about that. And it was that second year was I thought a really successful year. The league was in Utica. Everything King of Kings was based in Utica, but we had kids, this was on the boys' side. We had kids from throughout Section 3 and Section 4, Section 5, had a full team, and then some other kids from the other teams that were Section 2 kids from Zach Rads from Troy, Jaleel Nails at Columbia, Ray Jerome at Albany Academy, a lot of kids like that. John Sika came out at one point. It was Bethlehem.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not meaning to, but I'm just kind of glossing over several names. But there was a full team that was Section 2. It was a really good group. The number one question that I got while I was out basically recruiting for the boys summer league had nothing to do with the boys. It was, do you also do a girls division? And we didn't. And we had a women's league, and I get what the whole, what everything was behind it, but it, with the people that we had, I guess, we kind of had enough on our plates, just as far as men's league, women's league, college prospect division. At that point, there were some other initiatives involved with King of Kings as far as like voter registration, SAT prep. We had some different stuff on our plates, but that was the number one question that I got while I was out. I had decided I wanted to move out of the area anyways. I was decided to move to the Albany area. I've actually moved to Albany, but I also decided, well, why not? Why not do something like this for the girls? And I'd always had even when I was in high school, college, whatever, I wasn't somebody that looked at the women's game as less than. Like I always had an appreciation for the women's game, so it was pretty natural for me to transition over and to try to start that. So it was born from that thought. So it was kind of taken. It started with that sort of mold with the summer league. I had changed some sorts of things, or I kind of wanted to, make some adaptations to that model. And the first year it was the summer league, and I wanted to have a showcase, like a high school showcase. And my thoughts, at least at that time, was, again, coming up in Central New York, we had, even just on the boys' side, we had one college showcase, like individual college showcase for high school players every year. That was Al Knapp, legendary coach at VVS, ran it. And even just for the boys, like that was it for Central New York annually. And for the girls, even just a decade ago, I thought of like individual showcases. There were plenty nationwide, but as far as upstate New York, there wasn't much. There was maybe one out in Rochester in the fall, and we'd have a couple out of region organizations that would come in and maybe run one around here a year, but we didn't really have anything that was like by upstate New York for upstate New York.
Sure.
And I wanted to try and get moving with that a little bit. So had the summer league the first year and incorporated a fall showcase as well. And the first one, 2015, had 24 kids at Skidmore. And then each year I've tried to add something along the way, whether it was a showcase at a different time of year or a different location, or we got to a point where it was beyond the showcases, where it was the website or whatever. Just try to build onto it. But coming into it, did I have an idea as far as, an exact idea as far as what I wanted, or what this was going to look like in 5 years, 10 years? Not 100%. I'm not positive if I saw myself doing this full time.
Sure.
But it was kind of born from that idea, and just one thing's led to another. It's grown to what it is now.
So, obviously, you mentioned how it's been 10 years now. Let me ask you this: um, how do you feel the game itself, and the athletes involved, has evolved since you started to where it is now? Even, yeah, I'd say even just the last 5 years, but we'll go the full 10 with you. Um, and then also, how do you feel the coverage of the game on the girls' side has evolved, if at all?
The women's game, I feel like, has grown pretty quickly in the last decade. Now, I will say this: I'm going to throw a little asterisk in there. I feel like the women's game has grown pretty quickly. The depth of athletes, maybe not so much. And we can, this brings up maybe an entirely different sort of discussion as far as the sport specialization. I feel like we'll say I feel like the level of player and the depth of high level player is ascending. Where the game is evolving, right? Our highest level women's basketball players, I think, are just getting more skilled, more athletic. Our depth, the amount of kids that are that good is increasing. I think our overall depth of athlete, perhaps, perhaps because of sports specialization, perhaps because of, think about upstate New York, or if I'm just talking about this region in particular, our population is not increasing. the amount of people that live here just continues to dwindle. But I think we're kind of we may be losing a little bit of that middle ground of player, whereas that high level depth kid, the strong role player,
sure,
might just be sticking with soccer or sticking with volleyball or sticking with softball because they're legit in that sport. They're a featured player. They have higher goals, and the role player might not sound as appealing. But so that's something I know. I noticed that more during, that's something that's not noticed during AAU because you're talking the high level players with, the good versus good. Right. Or serious about the game versus serious about the game. So I think when you go to, say, your higher level AAU tournaments, you're seeing, even now, I think, just a different level of athleticism, a different level of skill than you would a decade ago. When you get into high school season, those kids maybe have separated themselves a little bit more from the pack. And when I go somewhere, like in the last few years, I've started to pick up Northeast Pennsylvania as a coverage region. And Northeast and North Central Pennsylvania, they care more about high school sports. Just the dynamic of the people.
Yeah.
They care. Their crowds are bigger. They care more about high school sports, and they retain their multi-sport athletes. So I go there, and the fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth kid is kind of a different beast because they might be high-level athletes that will go down a different path, but they're still, they're retaining their multi-sport athletes for, across the board.
Sure.
So that's a long-winded answer as far as the players. I think the coverage is getting better. I see more people. I see more people with cameras on baselines. I see more, maybe not so much tweets because I feel like fewer people are super active on X, Twitter, or whatever. But I see more people with cameras and more people paying attention throughout the year, and especially as this is natural, but especially as you scholastically as you get further in the season.
Yep.
There's people that I don't see at all in December and January that all of a sudden I start to see about the second week of February, which is natural. But I think the coverage has for the women's game has improved as far as how many people are involved in it, how consistently I see people at games. There's more cameras and more evaluators and more this and more that at AAU stuff. So there's the game is evolving, which is, we shouldn't treat the women's game on the same scale. Like we shouldn't expect the women's game to be as involved as the men's game right now in those regards, because the men's game has just been around so much longer. And so as we're seeing the boom of the women's game right now at the highest levels, and it's just we're at that natural at the highest levels, we might be seeing our Bird Magic moment, right? So that's with the men, the Bird Magic moment, and then the MJ moment, and then the money happened for the men. So are we seeing that for the women now? We looks like it.
Right. No, I think the big thing that you said too, I'll agree with you. Like, I think the fringe athlete that maybe was a basketball player, that was a soccer player, you always thought like, oh man, this kid's a pretty good role player. That kid's just been lost, I think, at this point at a lot of schools, the high school level. Like, you knew you had a lacrosse player that was going to come in and she's not going to do anything but rebound and be tough. And she knew that was fine because she wasn't a basketball kid, which now you're losing those kids because now they're like, well, I'm not good enough to play anymore. And I feel like our area a little bit for some reason is kind of losing those kids like you said, specialized sports and being able to do one thing all year long. But I don't know the reason. Like I guess I don't know the reason why some of those kids are now giving it up. By maybe it's the glory of wanting to be like you said. There's more people on the end line. I see more people making mixtapes and things like that more than ever too. There's all these different kids that have bought a camera now and now charging $50 for a tape. So
it's funny, and this isn't me talking down about it at all. This is just an observation. 10 okay, again, been doing this for 10 years. I haven't had a camera in my hand the whole time. Probably had a camera in my hand for about 7-ish of them. When I first picked up a camera, just as like a secondary thing, just kind of to enhance the coverage, add a different dynamic to it. The kids like it. The parents like seeing their kids, right? When I picked up the camera, I was the youngest dude with a camera in my hand by far at these games, by far.
Right.
There are times that I look around the baseline now, and I'm the oldest. It went from being the retirees that are, just something to do now that they're retired or whatnot to, it's 16, 17, 15-year-old kids,
right?
Which is cool. Like, they've grown, they were born into the technology. So it's just something that's more natural to them.
Yep.
But it was just an observation. I remember that last year at some point during sectionals, I think I was I forget whether I was at Buff State. It was out west. It was either at Buff State for Section 6 or Finger Lakes for Section 5. But I looked around and I was like, oh, Jesus, I am old. And just how quickly, like in 7 years, like I aged 50. But yeah, there's a lot of, I can scroll down Instagram and just mixtape, media package, so on and so forth. So
sure.
Yeah, I mean, that's another thing. Absolutely.
Well, at least it looks like these kids, they know how to ask for permissions to be on baselines, unlike some other people out there, not naming names at all or casting shade at somebody specific. Anyways, oh, that was funny last year. Anyways, so we mentioned the growth of the game. How about the growth of your brand? Because I introducing you as the mayor of New York State girls basketball. That a lot of people see that as tongue in cheek, but you are anywhere and everywhere. It seems like now. Obviously, your home base is Section 2 and a lot of Section 3 as well, because that's where you're originally from, anyways. But you've been to every point, north, south, west, that I can think of. You've been to you've covered Section 7, Section 10 games. You've covered out in Buff. You've obviously covered here. I know. I think you've been down. Obviously, you've been down to PA for a good amount of stuff. So, like, the brand at this point is out of this world. Did you see this when you first established the brand? Like, was that the end goal, was to basically be like the alternate brand from the traditional media sources, or was that just how things just kind of evolved as you put yourself out there more and more?
It's how it evolved. Yeah, I distinctly remember, and I believe this was my first year of EST. It was either the first or the second, in that 2014, 2015 sort of range. There was a snowstorm. It was like a very early, not even really winter yet, snowstorm out in Buffalo or out in Western New York that crippled that area. It was several feet of snow. Or like, I remember, I forget who it was, whether it was Niagara or somebody, like their team bus got stuck on the thruway, or the 90, if anybody out there is listening, will be listening to this. They got stuck on the highway for 2 days or something like that. I distinctly remember sitting in my apartment in Albany, like, at least I don't go out there. And fast forward a few years, here we are. Yeah, it just naturally happened with the progression of my offerings and what I'm doing. So I guess I always use the term coverage region. When I started doing this, the basis of everything that I did was that summer league. So the early years, my coverage region was basically, how far away do I think I can get somebody to come to Union College on a Wednesday night in the summer for a league?
Sure.
So that was Section 2, Section 3, Section 4. The North Country, because even though that's somewhere between 2 and 4 hours away, depending on where we're talking, if you're a good basketball player, and this is something I learned early on with King of Kings, where it was in Utica, and Kenan LaRose, who was a high-level Section 10 kid from Ogdensburg, came down to Utica to play in the league. So, I learned pretty early on that if you're a high-level North Country player, you're more willing to travel because you're used to it. You have to travel for higher-level basketball.
Sure.
You have to travel to go to Walmart. It's just part of life. So that's where it started. And then that was also Western Massachusetts, the state of Vermont was thrown into that as well. And then after the first few years, the expansion was start to go out to Western New York more, because the first couple of years, that's what I felt my coverage region was. That was the clientele. Those were the players that were coming to my stuff. And then it got to a point where I have a fall showcase at Schenectady High School. There were some kids from Rochester and Buffalo that were coming out. And it started with 5, and then it went to 12, and then it went to 22 out of 110 kids were from out there. And when I really kind of changed the model as far as actually running stuff out there, I had already started to be more visible out there at this point, for the previous couple of years. But once we had our COVID shutdown in 2020, that's when I had kind of changed the model to, let me actually run stuff out there. I'm visible out here during high school and AAU. You guys have been coming out to my stuff in Schenectady more and more consistently, greater and greater crowd. Let me start to run stuff out here. Let me come to you for that. So that started around that time. 2020 was the first year, and this was also out of necessity because New York was shut down in November. That was the first time I ran something in Scranton, and I've had a full showcase there ever since. So it's what it's turned into is, I call it the roads less traveled. Upstate New York, we kind of have our complex as far as being, not as being forgotten about.
Yeah.
Right. I look at, say, Western Massachusetts, and Western Massachusetts kind of forgotten about compared to Boston,
sure,
within the state. Vermont, kind of forgotten about compared to the rest of New England. Northeast and north central Pennsylvania, that's Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, Williamsport, whatever, just kind of right across the border from the southern tier of New York, forgotten about compared to Philly and Pittsburgh.
Yep.
So that's the greater coverage region has turned into where, areas that I don't think get the love within their own dynamics, within their own states, within their own regions. But did I see that at the beginning? No, but that's turned into one thing's led to another, and the Rochester stuff and the Scranton stuff.
And then now you've said that, obviously the highest level stuff has just taken off like crazy. The WNBA, like all-time ratings, all-time private jets and charters and things like that. The college game, this past year, we got the luxury of having 4 pretty good teams come to Albany and play, or 8 good teams come to Albany and play, and that was a great environment. And obviously, we had Caitlin Clark and LSU with everybody that's on that team in South Carolina here. So those are sellout crowds and everything like that. But then you go to like a high school game on a Tuesday night in the middle of nowhere for a girls' game, and the parking lots, obviously, you've been in those gyms and the parking lots are empty, versus it's a Tuesday night and it's the boys' game, and now all of a sudden you have to park illegally because there is nowhere to park. I guess, what do you think in terms of if you're leading a program or if you have an athletic director of some sort, like, I guess, what's the way to grow the game at that level? Like, it's hit WNBA at this point. It's really starting to take off in college. I feel like they'll probably get more college basketball fans than ever this year. Like the high school wise, though, like there's still that disconnect. The boys will have a sold out Friday night and the girls will play the same team and maybe better records. And there's 300 less people in the gym.
Yeah, first off, I don't like the way many leagues in Section 2 do that, and I'll be very upfront about that. Obviously, I'm not in those rooms. Those are not my decisions to make. Those are people that have much greater education and more experience and make much more money than me that make those decisions. But I frankly think that having girls and boys from the same schools play on the same night at alternating sites is stupid. I think it takes away from the dynamic of the whole school spirit thing, where you're now forced to choose.
Sure.
I'll just start off by saying that, in the sense that if you think that girls' sports are stupid and that it's not fun to watch, I disagree with you. But I would rather you have to, make your choice of not going to a girls' game based off of that.
Yeah.
Then, I'd like to go to both, but I can't because we're on alternating sites, and I'm going to go to the boys' game. I think we do it to ourselves, and not us specifically, but our model, which is it's kind of like you see it in a lot of different areas. It isn't specifically a Section 2 thing, but it is a Section 2 thing more than anywhere else I go. That not only is it how many leagues play boys and girls at the same time at alternate sites, also how many of our leagues play on the same nights.
Sure.
Like how many of our leagues are Tuesday, Friday leagues? I always credit the Foothills for being, for moving the girls to Monday, Thursday. That opens up the door. Whether they show up or not is something, whether they show up or not is one thing, but it opens up the door. And I go somewhere like Amsterdam for a Thursday night game. And and it doesn't have to be the Fadulo era where they were right up, when they were playing in early March against Averill Park.
Yep.
They can be a 500 team and still a crowd. There's still a crowd. I look over and I don't mean to talk about a lopsided loss for them, but I was there when they got beat up pretty soundly last year by Broad-Alban in Amsterdam. It was a lopsided game, and Amsterdam had a really nice crowd there. So, and they didn't have to choose between going to the girls' game or the boys' game, 15 minutes up the road. So I've always had a complaint about that. And you bringing that up just opens the door for me to rant about it. But that's a big thing where I notice just, okay, we're all playing at the same time. We're all playing on Tuesday, Friday, too, right? Suburban plays Tuesday, Friday. Colonial plays Tuesday, Friday. Patroon is
kind of
a
little bit.
They've mixed it up a little bit. The WAC has mixed it up a little bit. They still play on Friday, though.
Yeah.
I think the WAC goes Wednesday, Friday. But if we are smarter with the schedule, it also opens up the door for how we talk about, this is an entirely different situation, but how we always talk about the quote official shortage. All right, well, we have 33 varsity games on a Friday.
Right.
Of course, we're going to bump into a little bit of an issue. If it's spaced out a little bit more, because not only do we have 33 varsity games on a Friday, we're also talking some of our officials are college refs when our college is playing.
Yep.
A lot of them playing Friday nights.
Right.
Let me just. I'm going to throw out what I think is an obvious question to ask at this point. Cap, maybe you can provide a little bit of insight because you just basically wrapped up putting together the academy schedule for this coming season. What is so damn taboo about playing on Saturdays or Sundays? Wouldn't that just naturally make sense a little bit? Because you would think calendars would be a little more open, and it's not much of a crunch on, you say, parents or family members to be at games on Saturdays or Sundays. Like, that just naturally seems like a solution, even if it's not Sundays, even just Saturdays. Like, have a league do Wednesday, Saturday, or something like that.
I like Saturdays personally. Who's introduced that a little bit for their league games is, and I'm not saying do this for league games, but I think Saturday is a good opportunity for some intriguing non-league stuff. But the stack in Section 4, the stack is basically Section 4 suburban, all their larger schools. They've introduced conference games on Saturdays. And at least when I've been out there, they've had okay, not like pack houses, but they've had okay crowds. There's a dynamic out there. That's where I feel like more so than anywhere else in upstate New York, where there's kind of that old feel rivalry to it.
Yep.
Like, I can go watch Union Endicott play Maine Endwell, and I feel like they don't like each other. They might love each other after the game, but I can feel like they don't like each other, and I can feel like they don't like each other because their parents don't like each other, and so on and so forth. But that's the stack has done that, where they've introduced more Saturday league games, and I'll spend at least a couple more Saturdays out in the Binghamton area now than I used to, just because, all right, I can get a 1 o'clock game or like a 12:45 game at Union Endicott, and then maybe jet out to Horseheads for 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock, something like that, get out there in time. And I get a couple games that are staggered off against each other that are for, okay to good teams, where there's like real competitive spirit there. I know that there's some school, the whole Sunday thing is that's an individual school matter. Some are more open to having their teams play on Sundays or having their facilities used on Sundays, and there's some that just don't want their facilities used. Yep. But and Cap can certainly speak more to that than me. But
yeah, and then Saturday thing is strange too, right? Because the Saturday thing, there's a Capital District League that runs, which are the same officials that ref Friday night. But we're saying, all right, well, let's give them 4th and 5th grade kids the ref on Saturdays, and let's give them a 7 o'clock game after a long day of work. And whatever else is going on, we'll give them that game Friday night at 7 for like a Shenaville Park game after they just did whatever they did for all day. So it's a good point where in terms of, like, I think we've scheduled a few weekend games just I enjoy playing on the weekend. I think it's a day like kids can wake up. They don't really feel like they have to like hurry to anything. And I don't know. I don't get why we've never adopted it, but because at one point during the COVID, we were Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That was when we had the shortened period. We had 3 games in a week, and that wasn't awful either. Like I would have no problem with like a Monday, Thursday, Saturday schedule, but I don't know. There's got to be some way to change it, though, right? Like, obviously, at being an academy, we're a different animal because our boys never play during the week for the most part. So our boys are able to make our games. Our girls are able to run over after practice to see the boys. But I think the one team that sticks out, and it's not to put anything against anybody because we love, but I think Colony this year with having such good teams on both sides, they were choosing where we're going tonight. Like, and we had families doing it with families that had players on both teams. Like, I can't see my daughter play because my son's playing, and they had to choose. We'll have our schedule. We're going to these 7 for you and these 7 for you. That just doesn't make sense.
Right. Having parents have to divide and conquer. That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
And I'm so far removed from the boys' side at this point. I obviously I know that they get bigger crowds, but I just don't see the crowds.
Yeah.
I'm never in those boys' gyms. But going back to your point about mixtapes, I go on Instagram and I see, just kind of scroll through and I see the mixtape. Bring up Colony, right? I see a Colony, like a Cam Tremarky or something like that, and I just see the crowd in the background. I'm like,
right.
Oh, that's where they all were. Okay.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more support at the girls' games, and even if there's scheduled conflicts, but yeah, like we kind of shoot ourselves in the foot with that.
Sure.
And now for the Tremarkies, you don't have to worry about it because Cam's at Utica now, and Macy's still at Damon, and now they can just worry about Ella. So
yeah, they have to divide and conquer in Utica and Buffalo.
Yeah, they could just follow around the, Coach Heather and follow the girls around for the next 3 years. Nice and easy. Make the occasional trip to Utica, occasional trip to Damon. They'll be all set. Anyways, I know that one of the more infamous recurring things that I reference just to get under his skin is I asked Cap to recall the famous bus trip to and from Potsdam during regionals this year. But that makes me think though, because you are a man of many travels the last 10 years. Any funny or harrowing road stories at all for you? I know you just mentioned the snowstorm a while back, but anything in particular that you've had to go through while on your travels all around the Empire State and beyond?
Yes. Yes. Oh, is there anything in?
Preferably PG, by the way.
Oh yeah. The ones that pop into my head are snow related. I've had enough of different sorts of situations, but snow related ones pop in my head. Like there's one, and I apologize if there's anybody that happens to catch on and listen to this from the southern tier of Western New York, like Jamestown and surrounding area. That's an area where if there's if you've got a spot that you see on your schedule and you're like, oh geez, whether it's for basketball or work or whatever, and you're like, oh Jesus, I have to go there. Jamestown is that for me. Like that's it. It's in you. So, and we, our girls' state championships are Hudson Valley, and there always seems to be a southern tier of Western New York representative at Hudson Valley. You played one, Southwestern, in Class B. Frewsburg was here last year in Class C. They're 10, 15 minutes away from each other. Randolph was here the year before. Randolph, Frewsburg, South, they're all 10, 15 minutes away. Panama, they're all in that Jamestown area. That's 5.5 hours in a car. Like not even talking about school bus. Like that's a legit 5.5 hour drive. They're New York, but they're about as close to, like they're closer to Detroit than they are to Albany. They're about as close to Indianapolis as they are to Albany. So that's one where I'm like, oh Jesus, here we go. And this was several years ago, honestly, and maybe this is me getting soft in my quote old age, but this is a trip that I wouldn't even consider thinking about at this point. But 6 years ago, 7 years, I think it was 6 years ago, I had made the trip from here to Jamestown Community College on a Thursday. And my plan was to make it as far back, as close to home as possible that night, and then go up to Plattsburgh on the Friday for section. It was a sectional final week. So it was Section 6 semifinals for the smaller schools, and Section 7 finals were on that Friday. So I drove out to Jamestown, and I had made it through. I think there were 3 games. I had made it through 2 and part of a third, and there was snow in the forecast, like a good amount of snow. And my thought, Panama had the last game. This was when Panama was very good. They had the run with Angeletti and Schnars, and they were at Hudson Valley maybe 3-ish years in a row, or 2 out of 3, 3 out of 4, in that range. They were in that last game. I'm like, I'll watch them as much as possible, but I'm going to keep an eye on the forecast. And if I have to, if it looks like, if it's getting close, I'm out. And I walked outside at halftime of that game. I saw the first flake. I'm like, all right, I'm done. Drove 2 miles and white out. I'm like, oh, okay, great. I'm not driving 86 the rest of the way home in this. Turned back around, stayed in Jamestown. I'm not it's not like I'm making money hand over fist now, but I was less, at that point. So just stay in like a no-tell, motel, pay by the hour joint.
It's his favorite.
For the night. Wake up to like 26 inches of snow on the car. I'm brushing, I'm brushing the snow off the car, or, wishing that I had a shovel that I could just shovel it off. I'm on the phone with somebody. I just happened to park next to a garbage can. I dropped the phone into the garbage can as I'm trying to shovel it. End up breaking my phone there. I think I've had several instances. So that one, at least I stayed in a motel. I've had a handful of instances along the way that I just slept in the car because it was, made it halfway back with the weather, and the other half wasn't going to cooperate. So just find somewhere to crash. That was the first time I ever watched, first time I ever saw the Phillips twins play, or Sophie Phillips in particular, because Lily was still on JV at that point, was on the back end of one of those sorts of trips where I tried to make it back from Syracuse, and hit a pretty heavy, it was Christmas tournament week or holiday tournament week, and hit a rough stretch on the way back and just pulled off. Actually, didn't make it that far back, pulled off by the casino and just slept in the car for, it might have been like 3-4 hours. Started to drive that Cambridge had like a 10 a.m. game the next day. And I didn't even go to watch Sophie. Felt like I didn't really know who she was at that point, or just the twins in general. They played Schuylerville. I went to watch somebody else and made it, just the morning, drove out there, took a road that you're familiar with, leaving Amsterdam. What is it, 67?
Yeah, 67, yeah.
So it was, we made it to like Fonda area and it cleared up. So I'm like, all right, we're good. Made it to Amsterdam. Everything is good. As soon as you left the city limits of Amsterdam on 67, freezing rain. And I'm no exaggeration, there are 8 cars off the road in the first 2.5 to 3 miles on 67. And I'm thinking like, this is going to be, I've forget about watching basketball. I just got to make sure to stay on the road.
Right.
But made it out there just in time for the start of the game. But yeah, there's been a lot of stories like that, especially for the, I don't know if I have anything that's beyond PG to even bring up. But
now, before we get on to like kind of players and some of the things that you've seen with your showcases and things, I just have one more question. So, in terms of they're kind of, I guess they're somewhat fun questions, and they can be quick. You don't have to do 2 minutes explaining. But so 2 things: what section after a game that you're at? What section has the best food to go have something on the way home? And then 2, have you ever felt unwelcome in a gym somewhere where you walked in and it was just, I'm not welcome here?
Section 6. I think Buffalo. To me, Buffalo is the second best food city in New York after New York City. I can get pretty much whatever I'm in the mood for, whether it's drunk person food or upscale food or anything in between. I will look forward to going out there just even for the food. Honorable mention with that, probably. I mean, we have good food around here, but just as far, I have a place in my heart for the local stuff. It's like the things that are specifically home to a particular area, right? Speedies in Binghamton. I've a place in my heart for Speedies. Riggy's in Utica Greens. I have a place in my heart for those sorts of things. So, Buffalo obviously wings are what they are, but for beef on wick or pizza logs or whatever it may be, Rochester for a garbage plate, and then see if I still am alive the next day. Stinger sandwiches, like Stinger subs out in Buffalo too, with the chicken steak combo. That's another one that sorry, I'm getting into a little side story with this one, but that Stinger sub last year, Section 6 finals at Buff State. Basketball, there's 5 games. 4th game, basketball gets wedged in between the rim and the backboard. I've set something like a hard line for myself. I'm not going to get it anymore because I've had nightmares about that's how I rupture my Achilles. So I'm like, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it anymore. So 4th game, it happened on the baseline I was at. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing it. Didn't move. So they end up getting it taken care of. Last game, second half, it happens again. They had already wheeled the basketballs back to the equipment room at Buff State. And everybody just kind of looks around like, oh no, are we going to continue playing the game? Are we going to have to call it off? Who's going to take their shoe off? So I just get up and like, all right, whatever. Hopefully I don't blow out my knee doing this. And just like 2-step and don't even really try to jump, but like I kind of got up. Like it wasn't just wedge it out, but I was like, oh, I actually like left the ground. And I felt good about myself after. So I'm like, all right, so let's see how young I really am at this point. I'm going to Jim Steakout, getting a Stinger sub. If I live the next day, if I make it back, because you had Section 2 Monday finals the day after, AAA, AA, and D. I'm like, if I am alive for those games, then I still got it. But yeah, so I'll go out. I look forward to the food out there. And as far as feeling unwelcome, yes, absolutely. More so early on. It doesn't happen as much now, but because it doesn't happen so often now, it feels a little bit like, like Florida humidity when you're walking into that invisible wall.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit more like that invisible wall now than it did several years ago, just because I was more used to it several years ago.
Sure.
Yeah, that'll happen now and then, especially areas that I'm just not around as much during high school season. I'm not feeling that at Shen Colony or Academy Catholic High or something like that. Did I felt it a little bit. I'll since I mentioned it on social media when it happened, I'll bring up Keshequa, small school in Section 5, who they'll be like, that's going to be a potentially a very good group the next 3 or 4 years for the Class C's coming out of the western half of the state. I had 2 Class C games in Section 5 back-to-back days last year. And the first day, like the walking into that invisible wall, I don't feel often. But at the same time, it's not like I'm always feeling like, hey, love you, so happy to see you, which I don't ask for or anything. But I went to Bloomfield. Dundee Bradford played at Bloomfield, and the people at Bloomfield, I'd never been in that gym before. They were so nice. They were just so overly welcoming. I'm like, I don't know what I did to deserve this, but but here, would you like to put your stuff here? Would you like anything? You want water? You want this? Would you like a chair? Or, like, thank you so much. Like, I almost felt awkward because they were so nice to me. And then the next day I go to Keshequa, and the person that's, I guess, the court supervisor asked me if I was from the Livingston County News. And I said no. And I just, I got about 2 words out of my mouth as far as what, who I was. And she just looks, like short woman, probably not even 5 feet tall. And she just looks up at me and she's like, then why are you here? Like,
oh, Jesus.
I don't know why I'm here yet. We're going to find that out. We'll see.
And I know you've said you had some wild games, because we've texted a few times like, hey, how'd that game go? And you've had chairs thrown and parents yelling at each other and just
it's
chaos on the court with players. And I won't say what game it was last year, but I know texting back, you're like, I'm going to need like a cold shower after this game is over, because I don't know what the refs are letting happen right now. But
there was I'll probably get to during high school, like during the scholastic season, my goal is to get to 250 games in a winter. And I might not hit that. Like, that has to be, schedule has to work out. I have to be able to get a lot of those like weekends where there's something going on where I can catch 4 or 5 games in the same place, and then schedules work out and I don't get sick and miss any time. But always get somewhere between, maybe 220 and 260. And you can count them on one hand, but there's probably like 3 to 5 a year that are just, it's just debauchery. So that'll happen from time to time where I walk out and I'm like, I don't know what just happened. I did not get anything from this for a basketball standpoint, but I did get an interesting kind of entertainment.
So, as I mentioned a little bit in your intro, you're doing showcases, and you mentioned the showcase stuff earlier. Right now, you're in the middle of your fall showcase series. You just wrapped up the first session out in the Rochester area this past weekend. Then you're going to be down in Scranton, PA, September the 29th, and then the last one in the Albany area, October 13th. Before we get into anything specific about the Albany area one, just walk us through, especially now that you're doing 3 sites for this, just walk through the prep work that is involved for you, because obviously you're talking about getting commitments from the kids to come. You're trying to reach out to coaches, I would assume, to get them to come. So, it makes it worth it for the kids to be there. Just kind of walk through the kind of man hours that it takes to get behind that and make all that work out.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of time that goes into publicizing it, and whether it's personal notification as far as publicizing it, whether it's getting it out to players, parents, and whatnot, sending the personal notification where it's not just you see it on social media, reaching out to college coaches, um, you know, pretty much any college coach in the Northeast is legally allowed to attend, and sending more personal notifications on that when I can. As far as I feel like it's like a chicken or egg thing, but you need both, right? Without the players, the college coaches aren't going to want to spend their Saturday there, or their Sunday, pardon me, or their Friday night, or whatever it may be. But without the coaches, do the players necessarily want to be there? That depends, right? Um, so, yeah, there's a lot of time that goes into the personal notifications of it, the you know the social media stuff. Like, I am, for as much as it appears that I'm on social media, I don't consider myself to be great with it. um I'm not the graphics and all that sort of stuff. It's not exactly my area of expertise. Been trying to teach myself a little bit, but yeah, there's a lot that goes into that. um there's a lot of time that goes into even just securing gyms, and securing getting the officials and athletic trainer, and just kind of organizing all of that, so
The busy work.
the event itself can go off without you know, the in order to make it look like it's organized and everything kind of goes off without a hitch. There's a lot of there's a lot of stress. It's all worth it, but there's a lot of time and a lot of stress that goes into it.
Yep.
Brockport, the first showcase session. This is the first year that I've done multiple locations with the fall showcase. I've had I've had it since the first year, but this is the first time that I've had multiple locations, multiple sessions, just because people don't like to travel as much in the fall. I get it. Whether it's fall sports or you just got done with months and months of AAU and elite caps and this and that, and you just want to not have to be in the car for hours for basketball on a fall weekend. So, it's an opportunity for people to be able to do something that's maybe a little bit closer to home for them. And it's also an opportunity for me to get eyes on more players in a setting and an environment that I can control. Where I can control the matchups and get the most out of it from an evaluation perspective. But like the Brockport one, um, I did. It was an 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. The numbers were very close as far as whether I wanted to split everybody onto 4 teams or 5. And Saturday night, when I'd kind of waited till Saturday night to just wait for any backouts or whatnot to put the teams together and organize the packets and everything. And I was, it's up until about 2 or so, 1:30, something, somewhere around that time, doing that. And wake up at 7, and I only had one person back out on me, but the one person that backed out, it was like the perfect one, or imperfect one, where it was like, just as far as the balancing of how the teams looked, and the amount of size and the matchups, and like, it was the one that I'm like, oh Jesus. So at 7:30 a.m. I scrapped the whole thing and restarted. So and cut it from 5 teams down to 4, and change the matchups and change everything to do with the packet. So Sunday, wasn't helter skelter, I don't think, but I felt like I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off just because it was ditch everything at the last minute. I've never done quite that before, but it was just ditch everything at the last minute, change the matchups, just try to get the right sort of rotations and the right sort of matchups for me to be able to evaluate and for the coaches to be able to see the sort of matchups that they would need to see, but also to try to make it a more beneficial experience for everybody involved. So, yeah, there's a lot of, whether it's the contact with the players and the coaches and social media and this and that, and then the logistical end. Cap, I know we've discussed that a lot with my usage of Academy's facilities for a period of the last couple of years.
Someone changing the hoop code on us at whatever 4:15, and no one knows the code for a 5:00 showcase about to start. So and calling IT and saying, all right, how do we get this reset? And basically figuring out numbers, just putting together, and the hoops come down. So we pregame this year for that a day early to make sure they were down. But obviously your next showcase around this area is October 13th. Is that going to be an Impact, or is that going to be somewhere else at this point?
That will be an Impact.
An Impact. Okay, great. And in terms of our players in our area, Brian talks about it a lot, and so do I. But I feel like our class of 2025 group that we have a good class of 2025 players that are still here. So we have a lot of we have a lot of players in the 25 class that are going to be college basketball players and are going to contribute at the next level. But we both feel, I think, that next group of class, the 26, the 27, 28 class that are around this area can kind of I guess we had some crazy classes, like you said, the Phillips classes, and then the classes that followed those guys. But I guess, when was the last time that you felt like that, or do you feel like those classes are something that's maybe special that we're going to see for the next few years in those kind of three age groups?
Oh yeah, and it's cyclical, right? Like that 21, the 19 class. Like I remember the 19 class around here was strong. 21 class was very, very, very good. The class that we just graduated, the 24 class, was, the Audrey Shields and Taylor Houlihan, Allison O'Hanlon's of the world, Carissa. That was a class that was very strong at the top, and it had depth. And then you look at, say, 25, this current senior class, we probably won't have, in section 2, where we probably won't have a single kid that is still currently at a section 2 school that will go Division 1 from this class. I don't think, maybe, but I know we got a couple that are still kind of hanging in the balance, but I think our highest level commit right now was probably Caitlin Robbins, right?
Yep.
Committed to Bentley. Like Carolina Williams committed to New Hampshire, but she's also a who's Zach went prep. But with the classes coming up, I mean, the 27 class, not to skip over the 26s, because obviously 26 has some strong talent and it's got depth, and it's got some strong talent at the top, with whether it's Peyton Hoblock. Was Peyton Hoblock's upside, her ceiling is easily as high as anybody in this area.
Sure.
And she's got kind of the offers that match that sort of ups the ceiling.
Yep.
You've got one with a Division 1 offer with Alex Leonard. But then the 27 group, I mean, you're talking Ella Tremarchi, who I think Ella Tremarchi is one of the most rock solid players, regardless of class, in upstate New York right now. Like, if there's not that many kids that I feel like just throughout my coverage region that you can just put her with any team, throw her on any court, She doesn't have to know anybody. It can be as high level as you want. She'll be fine. There's not that many kids that have that sort of the combo of the skill and athleticism, but more importantly, probably the feel and instincts of the game.
Sure.
Or feel and instincts for the game. You just throw her on any court and she's good to go. Another one as far as upside is Malia Jackson, Malia is somebody whose name is maybe doesn't ring quite as many bells around Section 2 because she's been at Hudson. Not so much of a basketball hotbed, but is now at Shaker. That's somebody that, and she's an upside kid. She's still, the consistency still has to get there, which you expect that as players age, right? They age, the maturity, so on and so forth. She's got a little out of this is. I don't want to put too much on her, but she's got a little bit of like a Sanaya Wilson in her. The kid who was a stud out at Bishop Kearney. That was, they call her Baby Shaq because she was like 5'11", built like a 20-year-old, and she was in 7th grade. She's got a little bit of that to her. Who else? Obviously, we've got Dior at Catholic High. There's a lot of kids. The 27 class is very deep. Like, that's the one that I look at just as far as Section 2, the amount of players that will go on and play college basketball. Like, 27 reminds me in a sense of 24, where the 25 class, I think we're going to end up with a good amount of players that play college basketball. I think we have a pretty D3 deep class around here. There's a lot of players that are being recruited actively by varying competitive levels of Division III basketball, and I think we're going to have a good amount of winners at the D3 level to come out of this 25 class from this area. 26, the depth might match, at that level, and there's a little bit more scholarship money in that class, and then 27 looks a little bit more like 24, where it's like, all right, that's the one where there's some serious depth and there's some serious potential. Who else? There's several people I'm forgetting to bring up, but
I think with the 27s, obviously there's been a few standouts that have already, had bright moments on bigger stages, like you mentioned, Ella. I'd say Leah Pearson, her teammate, is right up there in that conversation as well. But I mean, then there's the others who, maybe not on their scholastic teams, have been getting a lot of buzz, but through AAU they've generated some buzz, like a Brooke Lilly, or I think Anna Mosier is a 27, if I remember correctly, too.
She reclassed 27. Yeah, she's a Rutland, Vermont kid. But she's with Julie now at Huzak.
Yeah, so like there's a few other kids out there that I think that I feel you on that. I definitely feel the 27s are gonna be they're gonna be a problem. It's gonna be some great games the next few years, though.
Yeah, I mean, if we're talking the prep kids, like, Anna's a stud. Anna's the real deal. Tegan Keene, like, people around here, a lot of people around here probably. Tegan Keene, who they won't necessarily be able to see now because she's also going to Huzak, but was Burnt Hills, and I believe she was 26. I believe she was reclassed into 27.
Yep.
But there's, out of the time that I've been doing this, there's always maybe 2 or 3 kids each year that I cover that make just astronomical leaps over the course of a calendar year, like from the end of high school season to about this time, where they just completely transform themselves into different, not just different level player, different kinds of players.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've seen anybody make the kind of leap that I've seen Tegan Keene make in that stretch, in that sort of stretch. And again, it's not something that necessarily be able to see in Section 2 because she went prep, but she would have probably been, like, if she was still at Burnt Hills, she would have, probably gone from somebody that it's a name that doesn't really ring bells locally to all of a sudden she's in box scores with 24 points and 18 rebounds, and you're wondering where this kid transferred in from. No, she's been here. She was here the whole time. But we talk about that, then that's an entirely different kind of worms too. But yeah, and there's a lot that are. A lot of these kids right now are actually kind of grouped into certain, handful of schools, right? Like Cap's got a gang at Academy with Alex and with Morgan and with Eva and so on and so forth. Catholic High, they are what they are. Dior, Navi Turpin, Kari Gatti, Ella DeBacco, Chris Foglia, Colony, the defending AAA champs with defending AAA champs that graduated, one starter and two kids that were in the rotation, right?
Two starters.
Automatic.
Bauman and Martin.
And it was Tremarky, Hoffman. Bauman did start.
I mean, you still have Tremarky, Pearson,
Yeah.
Hoffman. I think Olivia Payne has a lot of raw talent as well. There's still a
that's because Allie Payne started a good
Allie
amount
Payne,
for
yes,
him last
Allie
year
Payne,
too. Yes, that I was trying to. Allie Payne did. She started a decent amount for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, like they graduated two that were in the rotation. Shaker graduated a little bit more that was in the rotation, but they still. Shaker comes into the season with three players that have Division I offers, because Peyton Hoblock's got it, and then Giada and Sophia Lanny, who are also 27s, both got Lemoyne a few weeks ago. And you got Jayla Jeter, one of Section 2's better point guards. Add Malia to the mix. You've got several high-level players at that one school. And then even move to the small schools with talking about influx via transfer. You got the Wolves, who are now at Greenwich instead of South Glens Falls, and you take Greenwich, who was already going to be pretty good with Brooke Kuzmic, and Olivia Davis has improved a decent amount, and Grace Audiello is still there. Now you got the Wolves, and that turns into a state competitive Class C team. That turns into a team that you, not to write the storyline before it happens or anything, but they're in pretty good position for you to have several games announced by Brian Cady this year. Several, not two, not one, not three.
There's a team before, and I'm not going to. Brian knows who it is, but there's a team that's may have the most, maybe the second most, third most talented players in the league, and they just don't figure out how to play.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, like and we can talk about it after, but there gets that too. Like obviously, schools have to go through it, and you get transfers, and we've had the thing at Academy where we've gotten new kids in. It's kind of like the Lakers when the Lakers decided to get Gary Payton and the mailman and everything like that. Like this is just gonna work. There's still a lot to that, like because kids are coming from schools where maybe they were the person that was taking the shots, and now they have to figure out how to play as a team. So
pieces have to fit.
Yeah, so that's a big part But the one team, which we'll talk about after, but like we just can't figure them out for whatever the reason is. And you'll know who I'm talking about. Like once we get, but the talent level's there, and you see flashes of it, and you're just like, man, what is going on? So I think that's a big part of it is just the kids meshing really well together.
And I'm an idiot. Azira Gates.
No.
I forgot about, huh?
Oh, yes.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
I'm an idiot.
I
As
was
we're going back to the, I just, if I go through that list of players and I said so, and I was talking about 25s, I didn't bring up Azira Gates, that would, I'd punch myself in the face for that.
Has she even gotten any, like,
Yes.
what kind
She
of
had
offers
some
has she been
offers.
getting?
Yeah, she got some offers at Binghamton.
Okay.
At Canisius had offered, Sahara had offered her while she was at Canisius, and Sahara is no longer there. You know,
Right.
Sahara's in Michigan now, but yeah, AZ picked up some traction
Okay.
in spring, summer. That was totally forgot about her as I was going through, just kind of going through the Rolodex that apparently isn't working that well right now.
It's okay. You're trying to edit footage from 2 days ago. It's okay.
Yeah, right. Thinking about all that, but yeah, I mean, Azira Gates at Albany High. That's another obvious one as far as point guards in Section 2 and a player that's received legitimate Division I traction that has to be mentioned among the best in the area.
All right.
I got one last question. Here's my
right,
last question. It's going to put him on the spot, but
Bring it on.
you give me the one player from Section 2 right now that no one really knows about that you've seen either at your camps or at your showcases or your summer runs that is just going to show up out of nowhere and contribute to her team this year.
Show up out of nowhere. I'm not gonna give you one. I'm gonna go two different ways with this. Because there's one that has shown up for her team already, but small school, not really so much paid attention to, is somebody that you played against last year. I've really liked what I've seen in the last few months from Addison Thornton at Stillwater. Younger player will be is a sophomore this year. I've said this to a few people. I'm not supposed to quote play favorites and not in the business of playing favorites, but she's quickly becoming one of my favorites. Just as far as a highly skilled player, but just a hooper. Like you don't have to. What I love about this kid is I think she wants to just like get buckets and listen to pop punk music, and that's about it. You don't have to. You don't have to hype her up to play that Tuesday night Wazering game in front of 62 people.
Sure.
There's something to be said about just loving the game and the compete button always works. The meter's always high. She's always been a skilled player. The skill is coming along, and she's as she gets a little bit older, because she's a wiry, wispy sort of build. Now she's ever so gradually starting to become a little bit stronger, and you see her like she came out to Brockport on Sunday, and I was just watching. That's kind of fresh in my mind because I was watching that game film, and you see the physical confidence really kind of coming along. So, and there's just, as a player with the ball in her hands, she can score it. Like she's skilled as far as being able to create separation and be that kid to fill it up if she needs to. But she was also, you could even see, and this isn't something that necessarily translates well through game film. So I think it spoke volumes that I'm watching it. I already kind of have this in my head about her, but I'm just seeing it translate on game film of being a compound thinker, being able to string multiple actions together, where next play, quick reads with the ball in her hands, getting that pass out quickly. So, that's somebody that I think is kind of primed to take that next step from being like pretty good young small school kid with some upside to being one of the best small school players in the section. Other one, and this is, I guess this is also recency bias, but somebody that was kind of, how we brought up Colony, right? And there's the majority of their starting lineup and their rotation coming back. So very limited as far as spots and roles that need to be filled. I've liked what I've seen in the last few months as far as development and kind of rounding out our game from Caden Cornell. That's probably somebody that's the person to me I think might kind of fill that sort of void. She was, even just if you look at her like a year ago, I think of her as shooter. And then beyond that, maybe some other things in flashes and bits and pieces. But if I'm marketing her to somebody, or if I'm talking about her to somebody, I'm bringing up she's a shooter. And I feel like she's come so far as rounding out her game and bringing positive value in many different facets of the game, that she's now, if she doesn't have to shoot the three, like she can be off, or she doesn't even have to shoot the three to be effective in a basketball game at that level.
Sure.
I think she can defend multiple positions. She's strong enough to mix it up a little bit, and then the interior be something. Be something on the glass. She handles it well enough to, they don't need ball handling, but she handles it well enough to be able to play off the shot and attack the rim. I think that we'll see that a bit this winter. Obviously she's going to be, for them to be at their best, she's going to be probably like a star in her role sort of kid.
Yeah.
But that's another one that I would anticipate seeing this winter and are having some, real impact and some important, valuable games. Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
All right. Before I get into the interview ending segment of life's most important questions, I'm going to give you a player and I'm going to give you a game. Player, I'm going to give you a little bias because I know the father and I know the head coach. I'll give you Emma Larson from Burnt Hills, who's entering her sophomore year, I believe. That's a kid I think I would watch a little bit there. Now, a game, and I have no shame in admitting my bias here because one of the head coaches in this game is on the show right now. Albany Academy at Shaker, January 3rd. I'm just gonna throw that out there right now because, and I'm the thing is, as much as I love the 2 point guards in Jeter and Liana Williams, Morgan Vian might have something to say about Peyton Hoblock in that game. I'm just gonna put that out there because like Cap knows like Cap knows where I'm going with this. I think Morgan's ready to make a jump that she's about to make a jump that I think she was ready to make last year if she wasn't so beat up towards the end of last year. I think she was ready to make that jump at States, and she's going to make a jump this year that's going to open some eyes. I just put it out there. Cap, you can disagree with me if you want, but I'm just going to put that out there.
I'm not adding any bulletin board material to anybody's locker room. That game is very intriguing to me because of I look at it and I think, and you brought up a nice individual matchup in the backcourt, as far as lead guards with Liana and Jayla. But overall, it's kind of contrasting styles. As far as Shaker will be pretty big, pretty long. If you have, no matter what, if you have Peyton and Malia, you're probably going to be working through them a good amount. Where, obviously it's not, at Academy, you're far from a one-trick pony or a one-dimensional sort of attack, but where things work a lot through spacing the floor and operate through the guards and operate through pace. And I feel like that's going to be an interesting style matchup. So
I think it's the best that Cap is keeping his mouth shut right now.
January 3rd, I mean, that's one of those, like, I don't know what my schedule is for the winter. I'll start to put my schedules together for the year, like early mid-November. But there's certain matchups that are like, okay, this is on the schedule. I'm not looking anywhere else. Like, okay, looks like I'm going to this one.
It's starred, it's highlighted.
There's no other games. So that's what me and Jamie talked. Like, the Suburban Council doesn't start back up until the following week. So we will be the only kind of game around. So it'll be a fun game after a holiday. So
who knows? Maybe she'll break out that that bright blue suit from the sectional finals for that game. that was an outfit. I loved it. That was an outfit. All right. So it's a segment called Life's Most Important Questions. That may or may not be a facetious title, but it's there nonetheless. Rapid fire style. You just give me the first answer that pops in your head to this list of questions. Boy. Are you ready, sir?
No.
Well, you're gonna have to be.
Okay, I'm ready now.
Tough noogies.
I'm in my stance.
All right. First off, when it comes to energy drinks, Gatorade, Powerade, or other?
Unfortunately, iced coffee.
Okay, I'm with you on that. On that. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
No. Hot dog's a hot dog.
Very good. When it comes to sweets, are you more of a chocolate or vanilla guy?
Vanilla.
Best flavor of Starburst?
Ooh. I'll say pink with not much conviction. It's kind of like I'm cool with the second pick in that draft.
Okay. What goes in the bowl first, the cereal or the milk?
Cereal.
And then finally, if you're on a deserted island, you need 2 people to help you get off that island. Who are the 2 people you're trusting the most?
You have me stumped, so I'm going to go with YouTube by default and hope for the best.
All right.
A lot of muscle on one island. We're never getting off.
All right. I mean,
we take turns as the flotation device.
Better catch a whole fucking better catch a school of fish.
Whoa!
We better catch a school of fish. That's all I can say about it.
Oh man. And episode 26. First. Oh goodness gracious. Oh, that's great. All right. I'm glad it wasn't me. It was Cap, because Cap, I think, more people will be excusing that. Oh, good. All right. Real quick, before you go, if people are interested in, first off, is there still spots available for Scranton or Albany?
Yes and yes. Scranton, there's spots available for both. Albany in particular, I would anticipate might fill up. And even that's with multiple sessions. Scranton will be a single session. Albany's going to be a multiple session, morning, afternoon. but I still anticipate Albany probably filling up as far as what numbers look like right now, with it being still a few weeks out. So yes, there is still space available. To register, you can pretty much find it anywhere. You could, if you go on my social media, which is if you type in Empire State Takeover anywhere, you'll find it. It's at Empire State. It's Empire State Takeover, Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitter. I'm most active on that probably, and it's NYS Takeover there. But no matter what your preferred method of social media is, if you scroll about 3 seconds, you will find you'll find the link, which directs you to my website, EmpireStateTakeover.com. With that link, that gives you all the information, how to register, registration links and player lists, as far as who's currently registered, which I try to update every day. And yeah, there's still space.
Well, as I like to say, I'm roughly 2 months away from Jeff Mlinar season for myself. So it's always great to see you outside of the normal realm of possibilities that we have. So Jeff, I appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks a lot. Might want to consider turning on a light, unless you like putting tape together in the dark. I don't know.
Yeah, the light, it's like just out of reach, and I didn't feel like.
No, you're good. I like the mood lighting. It's good. I like
the room that he got in Jamestown that one night didn't have any lights either, so he's good.
Oh yeah, I got used to it there.
Very well.
It was just, I needed the light from outside to reflect on the ever-growing snowfall. To pop in at the Knights Inn.
The Knights Inn. Oh, we got one of those in Amsterdam. And it's been overrun by a microtel the last 5 years, but we still have a Knights Inn out here. Don't you worry.
There you go.
Jeff, I appreciate you coming on. Best of luck with your other showcases the rest of the fall, and maybe I'll have to pop in on the 13th of October and bug you a little bit. All right, man.
You're more than welcome.
All right, Jeff. Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
All right. The one and only mayor of New York State girls basketball, Jeff Mlinar. What up, man? I mean, I can't believe. I might have to try and find a way to clip that moment from 15 minutes ago. That was great. All right. No, it's 5 minutes ago. That was great. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I'm sure we'll have him on. His basketball previews going into the season will be great. He does his own, so maybe he can we can get him on. He can read his blog. If you guys don't follow him, he does have a subscription service as well on his site, Empire State Takeover. It's worth every penny that it may cost to read some of his write-ups after events and after games that he goes to. There's pictures that you can pull from there.
Don't you tease me with a good time? You may just give me an idea that I don't know if he's gonna like. You may have just triggered an interesting idea for in-season coverage on this show. I'm just putting it out there.
There's a guy that comes on a show every Friday on someone else's show. That's a radio guy. I
don't know what you're talking about, Brian. I can't imagine who in the world you are talking about.
That may go to a game here and there, but I mean, the other thing too, which at some point it'll happen, but because I'm going to call them personally, but News Channel 13 All-Stars, you would think that Jeff would be on that group of scouts. You would think they maybe just shoot him like a text, like, "Hey, who do you got for your list?" But I'll actively trying to get him on that list.
Jeff is still 20 years away from AARP eligibility, so he's not eligible for the Channel 13 voting.
Yeah, he doesn't drive a Dodge Stratus, but
oh man, yeah, I have my
But we'll get him. We'll get him on a bunch of times. I'm sure we could talk. It's an hour and 40 minutes. We could go on for 3 hours, but there's a lot of stuff.
I think I've told you my story about that guy. I think I don't want to. We won't revisit that. If you're really interested in finding out my opinions about that guy, I'm not a hard man to find during basketball season. I'll gladly tell it in private, but I just don't feel like putting it out there in public consumption. So I'll just leave that one alone. But yeah, thanks to Jeff for coming on. EmpireStateTakeover.com, at NYS Takeover on Twitter, just like we are at 84 Feet Podcast on Twitter. I don't care if it's X. I'm still calling it Twitter because
100%.
Screw Elon.
Those is offices. No more San Francisco.
What? What?
X is closed in San Francisco. They're moving to Texas.
Yay?
He posted it like it was something because he was asking, should I take this sign with me? And
is he gonna help build? Never mind. I'm not even gonna go there.
I don't know what's gonna go on there. Who knows? It's Texas.
I'm not even gonna go to where I was gonna go. I was gonna get political, and this is not a political show, so I'm gonna leave that alone. Anyways, yeah. If you've been listening to this on Spotify, thanks a lot. Follow the channel. Make sure you set up so you get notifications of every episode that drops. Same on YouTube. Like, subscribe, leave comments, or leave dislikes if you didn't like the accidental curse word for the first time on this show. Whatever, I don't care. Do your thing.
It was only a half. It was a third of a curse word.
It was more like a half. I don't know. We'll let the PC judges figure that one out. Well, let me ask the Russian judge. 6.3. Okay. or let me ask the Swiss who overturned the Jordan Childs silver or bronze medal, whatever it was.
Wild.
Yeah. Let's ask that. Which she is now challenging, by the way, in case you didn't see that news.
Yeah, it's craziness.
Good for her. I don't know. I think I'd keep the bronze clock from Flavor Flav though at this point.
Yeah, Flavor Flav. He was everywhere. He's at the U.S. Open for tennis. He's behind home plate at Yankee Stadium.
He probably would have made a better umpire than whoever was umpiring that night, I'm guessing. But that's another topic for another podcast. Anyways, that wraps up the show. Cap, yeah, enjoy your week ahead, and yeah, we'll catch up for Yankees Championship episode 27. That doesn't have a good ring to it, but you get my point.
No, I'll figure out we'll figure out who's 27.
You're the one with the weird lines.
The guy from the Murray guy from the Nuggets is 27. I don't know. We can figure it out.
I like the Jordan line you had for 23. That was good, but what else?
We'll just play it off.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.